One myth that won't die within the South Asian community is skin tightening cream. Now, does it actually work, or is it all a myth? So I've been helping South Asian individuals get in shape for literally 10 years right now. 1,000 clients have come through me personally, and hundreds come through Autonomy when I started it. And over that time period, I've had this question 500,000 times before. People start to lose weight, they end up having stretch marks, or they have loose skin, and they go into a bit of a panic mode. They go into the, oh my God, when I lose this weight, I'm still gonna have all this excess skin. Mums having kids end up with that kind of loose skin or pouch at the bottom, and they start shitting themselves about whether that is gonna stay for the whole of their time period. And they start looking at alternative methods to make sure that they can get those stretch marks away, or they can get away from having that pouch or that loose skin. So from taking people from 120 kilos to absolutely bare bone shredded, like AJ and other people like that, we notice a few commonalities. Step number one about skin tightening cream and the process around it. Most people that are trying to use it haven't lost enough weight yet. Sorry, you just haven't got to a point where there's not fat underneath the skin. Think about it this way. This is how you figure out whether you've got fat or you've got loose skin. Is that if it feels like tissue paper, where it's really thin, where you can roll it between your hands like this, or if it's quite thick like this and chunky, that's still lots of fat underneath. What it should feel like is like, even if I look like this, you should be able to do this. That would be loose skin, versus something where it's a belly, it's a more thicker piece. And therefore, you need to decide, are you at the right situation to even think about this conversation? Most people that are 80 kilos, 90 kilos are worrying about it, but they don't need to worry about it until they're 60 or 70 kilos. And when you're down to that position, you'll see how it changes. I've got a picture of Abdul here, and in this picture, you'll see that he has this loose skin because he's very lean everywhere else. His arms, he's defined, and he's got this pouch at the bottom that looks like body fat and obviously some skin. He still has fat in this area to go before we can truly say what is going to be left. So most people just don't need to think about it yet. And then there's a toss-up with number two, is that sometimes most people care about the visual changes and the visual aspect of when they take their top off, and they're actually more concerned with the stretch marks or the loose skin than they would be about being fatter. And this is a complex paradox of whether the visual changes mean more to you or actually the health repercussions. When I speak to clients online, they're often worried about the stretch marks or the loose skin more than they're worried about the excess fat that they have at 90 kilos. And this is what I say to them. Would you rather be unhealthy at 90 or 100 kilos or that higher body fat percentage, or would you rather have some loose skin and be completely healthy? And most people should take the healthy option, but still some people are careful about what they want in terms of visual changes. So before we get onto the creaming scenario, is we got to look at, does it actually affect fat loss in terms of how fast you lose it? Does it really change the impact on that loose skin? The answer is no. Not how fast you lose it, but actually how fast you gained it does take a big toll and consideration into this and how much you have actually gained. So for example, if you spent a small period of time gaining 10, 20, 30 kilos, that skin and that fascia would have had to expand over a short space of time, meaning that it would have been stretched and therefore will have been accustomed to a new adaptive property. The skin is a wonderful process, and when you look into the deeper molecules of what actually exists within skin and all of the things that connect it together, it has something called elastin in, which obviously is called elastic. That's why elastic was called elastic, because of the elastin properties. Elastin in the skin is not one in which is permanent, but it also does have a point of no return, or has a point of very limited return. And what happens is when this elastin gets stretched to an extended period, it will keep expanding and adapting until a piece that was this big is now this big, and when it's stretched past its capacities, it will lose its elastic properties to go down, but will continue its elastic properties to go up because it has to, otherwise there will be no room for the body fat to be poured. So when people gain their weight really fast, they lose that elastic property, and especially for those that have gained it over a 20-year period, or they've been larger for 20 years, those elastic properties are now set at a specific rate, which means that when they try and reduce it down, those properties that should be adapting to your fat loss are not going to adapt anymore because they've been stretched for a longer period of time. If you think about a t-shirt that has been stretched for 10 minutes, might have a short lasting effect. But if you stretch a t-shirt for 10 years, consistently stretching it, at some point the fibers within the t-shirt will lose its elastic property and it will be permanently creased at that point, or lose its like kind of specific shape. And we want to think about skin in that property. There are some real key factors, not how much you lose it, but how fast you gained it and how long you've been dealing with this particular problem for, and versus what you were when you were 21. So for example, where you were 21, if you were 70 kilos at 21 and now you're 120 kilos at 31, you'll have grown a long period, a large amount of size over that time period, which will leave lasting effects. But the thing is that although I'm painting it as a negative picture, you never truly know. I've had clients that have been 120 kilos and had no stretch marks or no loose skin, and I've had people lose 10 kilos and have loose skin. But it just depends on the individual and the parameters around it. You don't need to worry about fat loss being fast, slow, or medium to impact your loose skin. You needed to worry about that when you're filling your face full of the calories that made you go up. So don't worry about the diet side of things. If you're going on a fast diet, it's just taking away the fat faster for you to see what you've left bare with. A mindset hack that I utilize with my clients, outside of the question about which one would you rather, health or physique, is thinking about this. Not everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's law. If you take your body to a position that is unnaturally expanded and larger, you have to bear consequences. There's always consequences to doing things, whether good or bad. And it's sometimes important to accept that you did put it through a bit of stress and you did put it through a large period of expanding. That always doesn't come scot-free. And therefore, yes, the health implications of your health got better, or your mood got better, your enjoyment, your activity got better, your ability to do lots of things got so much better with reducing your fat. But it doesn't mean that there's not going to be any lasting damage or any lasting things. If I smashed up this room now with a sledgehammer, I'd still be able to work in it, but it doesn't mean that there'll be lasting damage from the effects that I did on smashing this room up. Terrible analogy, but hopefully you get it. So then most people then lead themselves down that route of like panic, looking at creams and looking at the marketing and looking at what people are selling, and someone's got an ancient thing from 10 years ago, and then they seem to got better results, or they got some results with the cream side of things when it comes to the loose skin. Now it's interesting when you look at marketing for skincare, because obviously it's a sales job, it's a marketing job, it is garnished to create you as the consumer to buy their shit. So I did a bit of a research and I did some stuff when I was a little bit younger, when I was quite embarrassed about my stretch marks and embarrassed about my loose skin, because I still have them to this day. But when I looked at the active ingredients, when I looked at things that they were putting into them and did some research about those individual properties, there's some red flags that you might want to consider when looking at these skincare brands. One is like, are they using dehydration properties? So there are some dehydration properties like aminophylline, green tea extract, caffeine, those type of things, all the things that you might not see but they're natural, might be creating a water reduction in the specific topical area. So you think about this, you've got the cream on top, then the skin, then all of the different layers of the skin, and then you've got then the muscle tissue underneath and whatnot. Effectively, that cream works on that superficial layer of skin, and it can do a few things. It can help you moisturize the area and basically like soften it up and obviously get the liquid in that area. Or if it has things in that are dehydrating by nature, it will reduce the water within those areas for the extended period of time that the cream is on top. And you may feel like you're reducing your loose skin, but actually what you're doing is just dehydrating it. And then if you don't continue to take the cream, then you're going to then rehydrate the cell, because your body's going to do that. It's going to rehydrate, and then you'll be back to where you were before. So there are a massive marketing ploy within this, which means that you get short-term results because you see it dehydrating, and then you want to continue that, so then you buy more of the product, and then you buy more of the product and more of the product, and then you get that dehydration effect of what it is, and then you think it's working based on whatever reason that you believe it is. So it's very, very tactful. The second part of the marketing, which is very truly interesting, is like the companies that are in Harley Street, the companies that are doing like crazy shit over people's bodies, whether it's the ice stuff, the suction things, the creams, all these different things. One thing that they're not telling you is that they are all done within conjunction with dieting. They're all done at the same time as dieting. So is it the diet or is it the cream? You know, if I wanted to make a product that was research proven and it was perfect in all the single ways. Let's say, for example, I wanted to make a supplement. Let's say, for example, I made a supplement tomorrow called Autonomy Fat Blaster. And then I tested it on 10 people, and I tested it on the people who were already dieting, and then used Autonomy's Fat Blaster, and they lost 5 kilos, then I could say, oh, with Autonomy's Fat Blaster, they all lost 5 kilos. And you'd be like, wow, that's sick, let me buy the product. But what you don't know is that they did it in conjunction with the diet, which is did the heavy lifting of losing the 5 kilos. My supplement just did nothing. And that's where we sit when it comes to the loose tightening cream, the skin cream, is like the research and what they're posting about it and the percentages and the before and afters come from 2 areas. One is like the dehydration of the cell and the skin. 2, it comes from the fact is that they all using dieting methods alongside utilizing whatever modality they're using. The suction thing, the ice thing, the cryo thing, massage thing they're all using dieting at the same time. If someone goes in there and just does that without dieting, which you wouldn't do, by the way, because most people, like, psychologically, no one is going in there just going to do the massage thing or not going to do the skin tightening cream, because to get to that point of where they think that they need the massage thing, loose skin cream, they're going to have had to do something about their fat loss to then think about that. So there is very, very little people going into these Harley Street clinics or fat loss clinics and not dieting, because they wouldn't be there if they weren't doing something better. And everyone who goes and pays thousands of pounds for these treatments, or £50 for a loose skin cream, is going to be looking after their nutrition more than they would do if they weren't paying £50 or looking after their nutrition because they got to that point. So it's really interesting, because most people see it's like a chicken and egg scenario. They're like, oh, is it the loose skin cream that made it better, or is it the fact that I lost another 5 to 10 kilos? And I think that's where my position stands on it, because I feel like it's an area where people overly focus on what cream can do and under focus on what losing more weight would do for you. And I think the biggest statement I say to my clients time and time again when they ask about this is, let's have a conversation about this when you've got the fat off first. So we can't worry about how much loose skin you're going to have, how many stretch marks that you're going to have, what it's going to look like, is it going to be ugly, is it going to be good, can I do something about it? You have to take the biggest common denominator which is underneath the skin. There's a layer of fat that changes the shape of this pouch, this sac, these stretch marks. And once you get rid of the fat, you might think differently about the way that you look at your body, because you'll be in a great shape and it'll be much easier to conceptualize. A large amount of my stretch marks in my hips, a large amount of stretch marks in my arms, they all go down when I drop fat, because if you think about the size of the circumference area goes less, and they hide underneath my blooming armpit, only to be seen when I stretch my arm above the head, which I rarely do. And before that, when I was just walking, when I was at 85 kilos as opposed to now being like, low 70s, is I would have them halfway down my arm. And just by losing that extra 10 kilos, the skin has got tighter because I've lost fat underneath the skin, and therefore they're underneath my armpit. So I think it's worth considering. It should be put to bed about whether you should be using the skin tightening cream. I think for a short term, you've got a photo shoot, you've got a one-off event where you want to dehydrate your skin a little bit to make it look a little bit more firmer, fine. But if you actually want to make long-term change and you want to get, in amazing shape, and you don't want this to be a big dint in your armory, I think you have to accept the consequences of your actions for the last 10, 20 years, because there's always a consequence. 2 is that you have to just get more fat off than you think, and when it's like paper thin, that's when you can start thinking about whether you need to do something about it. And then 3rd is, when you get there, think about whether having a little bit of loose skin is worth all the health benefits, all the benefits that you're seeing in life. And yes, you're not going to have a perfect six-pack, yes, you're not going to have this perfect body, but no one does. That's why there's filters on Instagram. And if you chase the perfect body, you're going to be very disappointed. But if you chase your perfect body, you're better than where you were before, and understand that no one is having the perfect body. Like, I have pictures of me in photo shoots where I'm absolutely shredded. I don't have the perfect body because I have a fucking scar down my knee. I've got a 4-pack, not a 6-pack, because I don't have the bottom 2 abs for some reason, that they're not prominent. I do have some stretch marks around my shoulder. But when you look at those pictures, you're like, oh God, he's got a great body. But that's because you're looking at it from the outside in. But when you're looking from the inside in, you will see all the flaws. So you're chasing something that can never exist. And even the people that have a perceptive perfect body, most of them got it there because they're genetic. And secondly, most of them are wankers, because that's all they care about. So there's lots of other things to consider when it looks into that.